Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to give us a call, worldwide toll-free, 800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And you can listen to the X Zone 724-365, as well as the live show, Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. until midnight, at www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is Douglas DeLong. He is a medical intuitive, spiritual leader, counselor, and past life therapist. He has written 3 books distributed internationally on the subjects of ancient healing, spirituality, reincarnation, and psychic development. Ancient Teachings for Beginners and Ancient Healing Techniques are published by Llewellyn Worldwide. His 3rd book, Past Lives for Beginners, was released in June of 2013. Now, Douglas and his wife, Carol DeLong, operate the DeLong Ancient Mystery School, where they teach courses in spiritual and psychic development, ancient healing techniques, past life therapy training, and Reiki. They also deliver a menu of personal services and travel throughout North America and Hawaii, teaching these courses. The DeLong Ancient Mystery School has received students from all over the world. Joining me now from someplace in Canada, probably Saskatoon, is our good friend Doug DeLong. And Doug, welcome back to the X Zone. How are you doing, my friend?
Great. It's great to be on your show again, Rob. Nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you too, Doug. So what is new with the DeLong Ancient Mystery School?
Oh, we're just keeping busy. I'm working on a 4th book now, and hopefully I'll have it done in the next month or 2 and go from there. And we just, as I said, keep busy working with our clients and students and doing what we can.
Yeah. What's your 4th book on, Doug?
It's going to be it's a historical novel about Jesus. It's probably going to be quite controversial, and it might stir up a little controversy. I guess that's the best word to describe it.
Well, there's nothing wrong with
I'm
that.
almost finished. No, I'm almost finished it, and hopefully I'll get it out there and go from there. This is my first novel I've written. The other 3 have been more like teaching books,
right,
with some stories in. Yeah.
So, Doug, for our listeners who may be listening to you here on the X Zone for the first time, what was it in your life that put you on the path to the creation of the DeLong Ancient Mystery School?
Well, I originally had a near-death experience when I was 19 that was quite profound. And then after that, I was getting clients and students coming to see me, and somebody wanted me to start teaching courses and stuff. And then I started putting them together, and then I put my first book together and had it published by Llewellyn way back, Ancient Teachings for Beginners, and it's actually quite considered a classic now, and that's where it started all.
Why in the 21st century are we so interested in what has happened in the past?
Well, sometimes if you can look at the past, you can change your present and make your future better. You can do a lot of healing. Mm-hmm. You can understand and comprehend where all your characteristics and traits come. Someone phones and they show up. It's spiritual growth that they're looking for. They want to evolve, become a better person. Sometimes they want to open up their psychic and spiritual abilities and go with that. And sometimes they have other reasons, like they need some healing or something's going on within. But basically, as I said, it's the spiritual growth that the person is looking for.
Exo Nation, Douglas DeLong is our special guest this hour. And we're talking about everything from past life to, well, Doug, let me ask you this. What happens to us when we die?
Well, what happens is it's like falling asleep. You just drift off. Your soul slips out of your physical form, and it floats around the room. And eventually it floats up to higher vibration up into the heavenly fields, mm-hmm. where you meet angels and loved ones that have passed over. And when you're up there, you're there for a certain period of time before you make arrangements to come back to Earth. So basically, as I said, it's just like falling asleep, but your soul slips out and it goes up into the heavenly fields.
So is it fair to say that an out-of-body experience is a temporary example of what happens when we die?
Oh, very much so. When you astral travel or have an out-of-body experience, you're basically doing the same thing. When you die, your soul slips out and floats around the room, or floats down the hallway, or goes to visit a friend, or wherever it goes. And then when you're ready, your soul will slip back in your body. So the difference between dying and having an out-of-body experience is that the soul come back into the physical form. But when someone dies, the soul leaves and cannot come back in the physical form because there isn't an energy there to pull it back in and keep it there. It's like when someone's dying, all this energy, like a magnetism that helps keep the soul within, is released, and then the soul slips out and can't come back in. So it's really, really close. So if you're getting an out-of-body experience or astral traveling, you're getting an example of what it's like to pass over.
Well, speaking about passing over, Doug, is there really a heaven? And if there is, or if you've been given any insight with the people that you've worked with over the many years, what is heaven like?
Well, heaven is very, very beautiful. It's like when you go into a beautiful garden, a beautiful park. If you go to, say, Hawaii or to Cancun, the Mayan Riviera, you see all these beautiful palm trees, the ocean, and see all these flowers and smell these wonderful things and feel the warmth of the sun. So heaven's very, very close to being like that, but it's even more so. The flowers are more vibrant, and everything's so much more beautiful. The energy there is magnificent. So it's like taking a beautiful garden here and amplifying it 4 or 5 times.
And when people come back, I've heard stories where people have had near-death experiences and they really don't want to come back, but there's a force that kind of sends them back. What is that force, Doug?
Well, that force is their higher self, their soul, needs to come back because they haven't finished what they're supposed to be doing on the planet. And I had the same thing happen to me when I had a near-death experience. I was told it wasn't my time, and I had to go back, and obviously ended up writing books and doing other things. But just like the inner soul, the higher self, draws that person back in until they're ready to actually leave for the final time.
Is it true, Doug, that anyone who has had a near-death experience no longer fears death?
Most people have had a near-death experience don't fear death. There probably are a few that still feel that way, but mostly someone like myself doesn't fear death. It's more the pain or the suffering prior to death that I'm more concerned with. But when you die, as I said, you basically just fall asleep and you drift out. And most people aren't afraid of falling asleep, so you shouldn't be afraid of death process. You should also know that your soul is eternal, and it's going to go back up into the heavenly fields in the heaven and have a wonderful time up there exploring this magnificent place with all the flowers, trees, and temples and parks that are up there.
You know, if we are sent back, or if we decide to come back because we haven't learned all the lessons, wouldn't it be just as easy for the other spirits who have come back many times, who have experienced what we believe we haven't experienced yet, to let us know, instead of having to go through this over and over and over and over again?
I think the soul needs to evolve, to grow, and when you come back over and over, you learn, and your soul becomes more enlightened, and that's what you're shooting for, for more enlightenment. And when you get that enlightenment, you go back to heaven. You actually stay there. You break that cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. And that's what you're shooting for, is spiritual evolution of your soul.
All right, so let's say I pass and I am up in heaven and I'm saying, well, you know, it's about time that I get back down there. Would I be reincarnated into the same family, into the same situation, into the same part of the world? Would I even be reincarnated into another planet, another dimension, or could I be reincarnated into a cat, a dog? What are the variances here?
Okay. It's impossible to be reincarnated into a cat or a dog. A human soul is a human soul, and it doesn't change like that. Some people believe in that concept of coming back as a cat or a dog, but a human soul is basically a human soul. So that's the way it is when you reincarnate. Now, oftentimes people will reincarnate back in the family or groups in the same area, but not always. Sometimes I may end up, as you said, going to another planet or another part of the world, and they may come back as a female. They're a male this lifetime, they come back next time as a female in an entirely different country. So it's for your greatest spiritual growth that you reincarnate to learn as much as you possibly can. And when you're up in heaven, there's like a group of people meeting with you, deciding what's the best way to proceed. And then they make arrangements when you're ready to be able to reincarnate into the earth again.
Who are these people that help us make these decisions?
Well, I call them the Elohim, Elohim, or the Council of Elders. It's like if you ever watch a Star Trek show, you see all these people dressed in these weird gowns and outfits. And it's the same idea when you're in heaven. You're there, and they talk to you, and almost like in a Roman Senate house or something, and they're all there in these outfits, and they're talking to you about where they want you to go, what's best for you. And you negotiate and you work things out, and then you make arrangements, and then sometimes you'll even see where you're going to, who your parents are going to be, and go from there. And so it's all sort of arranged. You make all the arrangements prior, almost like you have a contract that you sign, a soul contract, before you come down to earth. And again, it's for your greatest spiritual growth.
What does one's own personal religious beliefs have to do with their evolution spiritually?
Everybody has their own spiritual beliefs. A lot of people have religious beliefs. It's whatever path you need to follow to get you to your spiritual enlightenment, get you back to the heavenly fields. And that's the best way to go, whether it's just a spiritual belief or you have a certain type of religious beliefs, certain organizations you belong to. Whatever works to help you get your soul back up to the heavenly fields is what it's all about. So I've had people come that are even atheists for past lives, and they end up getting the information that they need.
So when somebody comes to you for their past lives, how do you proceed? Do you use hypnosis? Do you use another technique?
I use a different technique. When someone gets hypnotized, I guess it's about 1 out of every 3 people can be hypnotized the traditional way. I use what's called a chakra flow induction. I get a person relaxed with my voice, and I guide them with the energy flowing up and down through their body, through their chakras. And they get very, very relaxed. Their brainwave patterns slow down. Certain endorphins are released, and they get in this very, very relaxed, altered state. And I find it's more effective than a traditional hypnotism. So it's a form of guided meditation using a chakra flow induction. And as I said, it works very, very well, and the person is able to then get the information that they need. And I usually have a success rate of about 80-85%
Wow.
of people that I'm with. Yeah. And that's because of doing the chakra flow meditation. And people get very, very relaxed. And they feel like they're in control of it. You're guiding them, but
Right.
they have control. It's not like when you're being hypnotized, you feel like someone else is taking control of the situation. So that's where the difference comes when you do a guided meditation.
And how long does it take, Doug, for you when somebody starts to get into the meditation process with you until you're able to work your way through whatever levels you need to get to the crux of the matter, to find out what this person's past lives were?
Well, it usually takes about an hour and a half for the initial session with the person. It takes probably a half hour to 45 minutes for me to get them into the altered state where I watch the energy shift around them and their soul starts to slip out and they go up into the heavenly fields. Or I direct them to see angels or guides that take them to special places that they need to go. And from there, sometimes I'll get them to go into the Universal Library, the Akashic Records, to access their own soul records and getting a lot of past life information that way. And usually a person will have sometimes come back for a second or third session just to get them through to what they need to do. And I do a lot of training. I empower a person to actually get a lot of their own information. And all of a sudden, something comes to the surface. They've had a problem with a certain type of fear or phobia, and they're able to release it. So that's the way it works.
Doug, this ancient technique that you're helping people with, why was it forgotten? Why was it put aside for the newer or the most modern method of spirituality?
Well, I think up to recently we shut down the spiritual side of things. Mm-hmm. We got more into the materialism, using the conscious side of the brain, not using that spiritual side, and we shut that down. But through the last several years, we've been able to open it up again. People are becoming more awakened, using more of their abilities, and seeking a spiritual path. And they're starting to access going back and getting information from previous lifetimes. Up to a certain point, we were very materialistic, and we sort of shut down that spiritual side of ourselves.
Is spirituality in a new growth cycle?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, it seems to be particularly now there's a great spiritual awakening on the planet. Mm-hmm. And heaven and earth are very, very close to each other. There's just vibrations keeping both apart. And as you become more open, more awakened, and as the earth raises its vibrations, you become closer to heaven. And there's more of a spirituality that's happening. So there's a cycle going on now where people are becoming more spiritual, the world's getting more loving, kind, and there's a higher, more positive, loving type of vibration out there.
Cool. Very interesting. Doug, you and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Please stand by. Exonation, Douglas DeLong is my special guest, and Douglas and his wife are the two people who operate the DeLong Ancient Mystery School. His website is www.douglasdelong.com. That's www.douglasdelong.com. And Douglas and I will be back on the other side of this brief break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Once again, you can listen to the X Zone 724 365, as well as the live broadcast Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Radio X, or on our website at www.xzoneradiotv.com. Doug and I will be back. Don't go away. Callahan, dedicated to negotiating a position for Earth within the Daguerreonian Coalition, had trained for 3 years to become an Earth ambassador. Yet, the very eve of her arrival at the capital ruling planet, she is claimed as destined mate to an oversized, mating-maddened vamp who swears he will never release her. Lord Aztaran, king of the Macian sector, has waited over 900 years for his destined mate. Having found her as an alpha vamp, he is unable to relinquish Annie, virtually holding her hostage until he can claim her. Yet Macians cannot survive without their mate's love. How could he strip her of her citizenship, her ambassadorship, and her freedom and expect to win her heart? With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is the latest book in this exciting series, The Daguerreonian Chronicles, guaranteed to keep readers coming back for more. With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is available on Amazon.com and KahiraO'Donnell.com. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Whale Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home. But after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to "my family, my farm, and my books." But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right. Transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Welcome back. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My guest this hour, Douglas DeLong. He's a medical intuitive spiritual teacher, counselor, and past life therapist. He and his wife, Carol, operate the DeLong Ancient Mystery School, and their website is www.douglasdelong.com. Douglas, I've heard something that is called future progression. What is that?
Rare. I've probably had only 3 or 4 people have actually had a future progression. What it is, actually, the person gets relaxed, and instead of getting a past life, they go ahead to a future possible lifetime. And one of the ones I had, the person went through, and he saw a city about 100 years into the future and described what the city looked like, what was happening. And the interesting thing he mentioned was that the population of the Earth was significantly less than it is now. Like something major had happened and wiped out a good portion of the population of the Earth, and it was left with a much smaller population, and the city was clean, and it had air cars and all sorts of really cool things. So that was a future progression the one fellow had. And as I said, I've had 3 or 4 people do that, and it's a very rare thing for a person to get a future progression.
If from the 3 or 4 other people that you've done future progressions with, have the futures all matched, or were each one of their futures different?
Each one was a little bit different. I had one that was very, very similar, talking about lack of population on the planet, some type of war, and some type of sickness that affected the planet. And there are very few people compared to what there is now. And they lived in harmony. And that one they talked about a lot of agriculture. People lived off the land. It was lots of gardens and parks. And it was more in that way that we got away from the concrete buildings that we have now. So that second one was very similar to that one, but just went into detail about talking about gardens and parks and people growing their own vegetables more than they do now.
How does future progression work? Like, from what I understand, the future is constantly changing based on the actions of everyone on the planet at any given time. So how can somebody go into the future without knowing all the variables?
Well, it's a really, really good question. What happens is the person will get a possible future progression, something that's going to happen. It's like when you're putting a play on stage, you may change the writing, the script, and the person may act differently and change the outcome of the play. It's the same way with someone looking into the future. They may be seeing something the way it's going to be now. That's before things evolve, something goes on, and then it changes or shifts. But they're looking at a possible future that's, as it stands, is going to unfold before things do change and affect it.
But once again, if we are saying that we can be reincarnated in a different time, a different dimension, a different planet, is there any way to tell whether or not this person is actually looking at, let's say, the future of the planet Earth, or does that ever come up? Where exactly they're looking and what future and where this future is?
Well, most people that I have worked with, basically they see the Earth in the future, like I said about the person with the city that was very clean, with a much smaller population, with air cars and beautiful buildings and the pollution. There wasn't any pollution that we have now, and that's basically what they saw. I didn't see anything else about other planets or other dimensions. It was basically Earth that they seem to be focusing on, all the people that I've dealt with.
Now, you're also a medical intuitive. Tell us about that.
Well, when someone comes to see me, or sometimes when they phone me, we start talking, and I'll get a bit of information, and I may ask them a few more questions, and suddenly, especially when someone's in front of me, I can see the aura, the colors and lights around an individual. I can see the chakras, and suddenly I may pick up, and someone's got a problem with the heart. I'll see almost like an overlay over top of their chest, and I may see a darker color inside, or I may see a dark gray-black mass somewhere in the body, which is indicating a cancer. And I basically get information. Sometimes when I'm scanning, I may see something wrong with the kidneys, or there's a dirty color over the breast. It's telling me a woman's got breast cancer. And I get the information either by the colors that I see, or I get pictures of what's going on inside the body. And there's a lot of people that do that as medical intuitives. It's almost like they have an X-ray vision that they can look at and see a lot.
I was just going to say, you sound like a walking diagnostic center.
It's something like that. Yeah. But for me, it's mostly the aura, the colors that I see, particularly if a woman, say, has, as I said, breast cancer. If she's got breast cancer in, say, her left side, I'll look and I'll see a dirty yellowish gray-green over top of that breast area, and that'll indicate to me where the problem is. And if someone's got a stomach problem, I'll see darker colors swirling over at the top of the stomach. So the dark color seems to be just above where the problem is.
All right, so you make this diagnosis. what does the person do with the information that you've given them?
Well, I will suggest to a person that they should go see their doctor,
Right.
or whomever they need to just get some type of help. Just if, for instance, I've had some people that have had heart issues, and I tell them, you should go see your doctor or specialist and just get it checked out. And a lot of them do. They'll follow through. And I've had a few people that have come back and said, I saw my heart specialist, and he said I had a problem with my valve just like where you told me it was. And so it's good when they follow up. Sometimes when I see stuff, if I'm able to tell the person, then they can look after it, and they can catch themselves from getting sicker or preventing a problem. Unfortunately, you can't always do that because someone's walking down the street and you can tell they're about to have a heart attack. They get this terrible red color around their chest area, and you can't say anything to them because you don't know them, and they probably wouldn't feel comfortable with you walking up to them telling them that. So you have to be careful. If someone comes to see me, then I know I have permission. I can give them the information that they need.
Do you work with doctors, and has this... being a medical intuitive, have you ever worked inside of a hospital to help the medical practitioners?
No, I've had a few doctors that have phoned me and emailed me, and I've done work with a few over the phone. A few down in Texas, I've had them contact me. And actually, one doctor and her husband came up to Calgary when I was teaching classes, and she was an OB-GYN. And I diagnosed, I saw something wrong with her stomach, and she was pregnant, and she was going to have twins, and she ends up seeing the one twin dying, not making it. Yeah, so when we finished, we did energy work, and when she went back to her clinic, eventually she took some of the techniques that I taught her, and she put them into her clinic, and she actually finally gave birth to a child, but up to that point, till she did the energy work and everything with me, she wasn't able to have a child. There's always an issue with it. So it's great when they can do that. So I've only had a few people. I've had a psychiatrist phone me a few times for information. I've guided them how to do a particular chant that opens up the brain and releases endorphins, and he was using it with his patients in his clinic in New York. That's about it. Yeah.
So where did you learn all of this, Doug?
Well, I was born with the abilities to see angels and guides and see the lights or colors, the aura around people. And then I lost it for a while. When I came back after a near-death experience, I started reading as much as I could. I always was into metaphysical stuff, and I had a lot of studies through the Rosicrucians in California, and I just developed a lot. And also when I sleep, I go up to the heavenly fields, and I'd be taught stuff up there by guides or angels, showing me all sorts of information. So it's taken many, many years, a lot of studies, and just having my own abilities open up.
So when you go up to the heavens to learn these lessons, where do you go? Do you go to heaven itself? Or do you go to where the Akashic records are?
Well, the heavens or the heavenly fields, there's different levels or areas.
Okay.
And you can go up certain places. You can go into the Akashic records, or as you said, the Universal Library. Or you can go to a healing garden. You can go to healing temples, teaching temples, to many, many places. And there's different levels that you go to up there to learn. Sometimes I've gone to places, it's almost like a teaching temple. I see pillars, marble-type structures, and someone's there teaching me, sitting, talking to me. Or they'll show me something on a board, writing things down. And I get the words, I get the impressions. And when I come back to Earth, when I wake up, I may not remember all of it, but all of a sudden it starts to come through. So that's how I get it. It's almost like I'm up there in this teaching temple getting the information.
If there's a heaven, is there a hell?
I don't believe there's a hell. I believe there's different levels of heaven, different vibrations. You can be at a lower area where the vibrations aren't as high as they should be, where people that aren't quite as developed or have issues that are sort of in a holding pattern. And then you can go up to these higher levels where there's such love, light, beautiful energy, colors for healing, angels and spirit guides and beings that work with you. So there's many, many levels. Hell is something that was just invented to scare people. I always believe the church way back came up with the invention of hell to scare people, to keep them going to church and keep control over them.
Well, if the church invented hell, how do we know they didn't invent heaven?
Well, heaven has always been there, and you know inside without having anything to do with any churches. You can just feel stuff. And a lot of people I've worked with through the years, people that were just sick, ready to pass over, would come for a session. They end up going up into heaven and describing how beautiful it was, talking to angels and loved ones that have passed over. They're just a wonderful experience for me to be able to listen to and observe the wonderful event happening. So when people tell me that over and over and they talk about heaven, I know it's very real. And of course, I've been there more than once, several times. I've gone up to the heavenly fields and seen what it looks like, and I know it's very real.
When you went up to the heavenly fields, did you go as a visitor, or was this during a near-death experience, or was this just something that happened because you needed to learn something?
Well, a little bit of both. I had a near-death experience when I was 19. I had a lot of surgery. I ended up leaving my body. I was in intensive care and eventually ended up floating up towards heaven. But they stopped me there. There's light, and two angels came and told me it wasn't my time to go up there. But after that, I've gone up there to visit, much the same as when you fall asleep and you dream. And the dream is very vivid, and I go up there and I can see myself talking to angels, and I'm walking in the park, or I've gone into a teaching temple or healing temples or beautiful gardens and just seen these wonderful experiences. And it's also sometimes I've done it when a form of soul travel or astral travel. I've slipped out of my body in this very deep altered state, and I've slipped up there. And I've seen these guides and angels, even seen Jesus talking to me sometimes too. It's really, really cool. He's dressed in this kind of a light blue robe, and he's smiling at me, and he's passing on information. So I've had that happen many, many times.
What kind of information has Jesus passed on to you?
Well, what's going on the planet, that it's changing, and that if we don't make the changes necessary, that our planet will not survive. We won't survive unless we do make these changes. And we're right on the edge. We can go either way right now. And that's one of the things he's told me on several occasions. And he also has been helping me with this particular book, giving me information and writing down stuff. When he's up there talking to me, I remember it and I write it down, and I put little things into my book. And that's what I'm saying, why it's going to be controversial. So that's a lot of things he says. He also talks about healing, the aura, chakras, and how to do healing work, and the counsel and help others.
Let me ask you this, and I don't mean it to be crude, or I certainly don't mean it to be offensive, Doug, but why would Jesus choose Douglas DeLong?
Well, I think he chooses a lot of people. I'm not just the only one.
Okay.
Sometimes, like as a kid, I have visits from him or others. A lot of people have high spirit guides. These beings like Jesus come to visit them. They wake up, or they're in a very deep states, sleeping, and they talk to them. Or else they go up there and they get all sorts of information from these beings, Buddha, Jesus, or whomever. These great master teachers will work with more than just one or two people. They work with a lot of people on the planet. Particularly if you're more enlightened, more open, you have the ability to communicate, to work with them, to connect with them.
Now, when you're up in heaven, Doug, do you have a body, or is it just your consciousness that you're aware of?
I have my soul body, my soul form. It's like, if you ever watched that movie Ghost, where you see these shapes, and when I look at myself, I'll see an ethereal shape. I can see my hands, but I can see through them, and it's all ethereal. And that's what I see when I'm up there walking around. I look and I just see that type of shape. And sometimes it'll get more solid, but mostly it's that ethereal shape.
So when you're up in heaven, do you feel how cool it is or how warm it is? Is there a wind? Can you smell the flowers? Can you listen to the birds?
Well, I can hear the birds and I can smell the flowers. The smells are wonderful, and sometimes you'll feel the breeze blowing across your face, your body. It's really a wonderful experience, and it feels like you're right there, enjoying the sunshine and the fresh air and smelling the flowers. One of the things, the strongest things, is the smell. for the psychic sense when you can smell things greatly.
So, when you've been in heaven, have you met any of your relatives that have crossed over?
Oh yeah, my mother, she died from cancer, and I went up there. I went into the hospital where she was healing, and there's curtains up, and it looked like almost like a Roman type place with the pillars and everything like that. And I saw these angels floating by, and I walked in. She was sort of sitting / lying on the bed, and she says, "Oh, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here." And I said, "No, I just came to visit, see how you're doing." And she looked like she did before when she was dying from cancer, but it looked like she was starting to get a little bit better. But I saw her up there like that, and that was quite fascinating. And one time I went up there and I talked to my grandfather, DeLong, and he was just standing there, and he was smoking a pipe like he always did. So it was really cool.
So if somebody dies, like if you don't mind, I'll use the example of your mom who passed away with cancer. She actually goes to heaven to get fixed.
Oh yeah, once she passed over, she went up to heaven, and they do the healing work on the soul up there.
Oh.
And by the time they're finished, then she's probably looks like she did when she was 30 or 40 when she was still healthy. And eventually I went up there another time and I saw her, and she looked very healthy. She was good looking. She was 35, 40, smiling. She looked very healthy, and there's an angel beside her.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really cool experience.
Doug, what do the angels look like?
Well, they come in very, very many forms. Sometimes I'll just see a light, a ball of light or energy. Sometimes I'll see them in that ethereal shape I was talking about,
right?
With their hands, their face, and their bodies, and I'll even see the wings around them. And sometimes I'll just see a face and then the hands coming out and touching me or touching my head. It's a really, really cool experience.
What does it feel like when you're touched by an angel?
Sometimes when they touch me, it just rushes right through my body. Particularly, I've had a few times when someone's touched my head, an angel, and this energy just shoots through my body like a tremendous warm healing electrical charge. It just shoots through the spine, right through your whole body, out your hands and your feet, and it's just an incredible experience. And it's probably 10 times stronger than anything you can imagine.
What does it take to become an angel?
Well, I always thought for a long, long time that humans and angels were two different, whatever you call it.
Species?
Species, yeah. And they worked in combination with each other.
Right.
And I always believed the human was always a human and an angel was always an angel. But sometimes I think sometimes they can switch over. I always used to think it was the other way, but I think in some cases when someone becomes very enlightened, there's a possibility that they can become an angel. That's my belief.
People talk about guardian angels, and then, of course, the archangels, Gabriel, Michael, and the list goes on. Have you seen or have you had contact with an archangel, and what's that like?
Oh, Michael.
Yeah.
Michael's come around me sometimes, and he's a big, strong, powerful man with a sword and just incredible energy around him. I've had him around me probably 5 or 6 times through the last 10 years. It's just an incredible experience. You can feel his energy in this big, huge shape. It's just incredible. He's done that to protect me, too.
What about evil? You know, we were talking before if there's a heaven, you know, if the church created hell as a matter of control, how do we know there's a heaven? And you were saying because of the different vibratory levels. Would you say that here on Earth could possibly be hell as we are led to believe it because the vibration level here on this planet with all our species is so low?
It could be. It's our vibratory rate on the planet is lower than it should be, but it is starting to get better, starting to raise its level, and eventually it'll be very, very high. And I think with all the people that have negative thoughts, they're angry, they're hateful, full of hate and malice, that they can create this lower vibration of energy and create their own hell here on the planet. So I really sometimes think Earth is could be very similar to hell in some way, but it has the potential to be paradise on Earth too.
Doug, we've got to say so long for tonight, but I'd like you to let our listeners know how they can find out more about you, your courses, and your books.
Okay. You can contact www.douglasdelong.com. That's douglasdelong.com. And my books, Ancient Teachings for Beginners, Ancient Healing Techniques, and Past Lives for Beginners, are available through our website, through our store here, or else you can get it online. There's ebook availability. You can have an e-reader. You can pick them up that way through Kindle. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, you can buy my books that way too. And you can just contact me at douglasdelong.com. You can, through the email, at mysteryschool@sastel.net. We offer our courses and services that way.
Douglas, thanks very much for joining us, my friend. Regards to Carol, and I look forward to the next time you and I meet here in the X Zone, or in heaven.
You're welcome. Thanks, Rob.
Take care, my friend. By the way, X Zone Nation, if you'd like to see the TV interview I did with Douglas DeLong, go to www.xzonetv.com. Well, that's it for tonight, everyone. 4 hours of exchanging information, bringing light and knowledge to you, the members of the X Zone Nation, all around this great, beautiful world of ours. So until tomorrow night, as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone, remember, if there's someone you can help, help them. It doesn't hurt to smile or say hello to somebody. And after all, we are each other's keeper. So until tomorrow night, from everyone here at the X Zone, to each and every one of you out there, always remember to keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.